We're ready, Zane said, his voice resolute. We'll do whatever it takes to stop them. Isabella turned toward him, a quiet fire igniting within her. Together, then, she said softly. We fight. Together. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Isabella didn't feel the crushing weight of uncertainty. She felt the power of the earth, the air, the water, and the fire within her. And she knew that, no matter what the old ones threw at them, she would stand her ground. Chapter 23, The Calm Before the Storm. The night was still as Isabella and Zane stood in the heart of the sanctuary, the weight of their next steps pressing down on them. The woman who had guided them, her name still unknown, watched them with a quiet, knowing gaze. She had been training Isabella for hours, teaching her how to harness the energy of the earth, the air, and the elements, but Isabella knew she was far from mastering the power within her. The woman finally spoke, her voice low and steady. You've made progress, but there's much more to learn. You must connect with all the elements within you, earth, air, fire, and water. Each element holds its own unique power, but they are all bound together by the same force. You are the key that binds them. Isabella nodded, but the weight of the task ahead hung heavy on her. She could feel the power stirring inside her like a storm brewing just beneath the surface, threatening to break free at any moment. The elements were alive within her, and with each lesson, she felt them grow stronger. But the thought of using them against the old ones, against beings older than time itself, was both exhilarating and terrifying. Zane, standing close beside her, seemed to sense her unease. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You've got this, Izzy. I believe in you. She looked up at him, her heart filled with both gratitude and uncertainty. I don't feel ready. The old ones are too powerful. What if I can't control it? What if it destroys everything I'm trying to protect? Zane's expression softened, his amber eyes filled with understanding. You don't have to do this alone. I'm with you, every step of the way. And no matter what, you'll never be alone in this fight. His words, simple as they were, filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just fighting for her child. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for the world that hung in the balance, a world teetering on the edge of destruction. And she would do whatever it took to protect it. The woman who had been watching them nodded, as if sensing Isabella's internal shift. Your bond with Zane will strengthen your resolve, but you must also learn to rely on your own strength. The old ones will try to break you, to make you doubt yourself. But you must stay true to your purpose. The words settled in Isabella's chest like a weight she couldn't quite shake. The old ones would stop at nothing to claim her child. And when they returned, because she knew they would be a battle unlike any other. She straightened, meeting the woman's gaze. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady despite the fear that still lingered beneath her resolve. Teach me everything I need to know. I won't let them win. The woman's expression softened, but there was still an air of caution in her gaze. Very well. The training will be intense. It won't be easy. But if you want to stop them, you need to understand the full scope of your power. Isabella took a deep breath. She wasn't sure how much more she could take, but she had no choice. The world was counting on her. Her child was counting on her. As the woman began to speak again, Isabella closed her eyes, focusing inward. The power within her stirred, and she could feel the threads of the elements stretching out toward her, earth, air, fire, water, all interwoven, connected by the pulse of the world itself. But there was still something else. A force, deep and ancient, that called to her, a force she couldn't quite name, but she knew it was the key to everything. The child inside her was more than just a vessel. It was the nexus of this power. The link between her and the elements, between life and death, creation and destruction. And she had to learn to control it. The next few days were a blur of intense training and deep reflection. The woman taught her to channel the power of the earth beneath her, to feel the rhythm of the world around her. She learned to call upon the wind, to command the fire, and to shape the water with a single thought. Each lesson left her feeling both stronger and more overwhelmed, as the power inside her grew. Zane remained by her side, offering support and protection, though he could see the toll the training was taking on her. She was pushing herself harder than he'd ever seen anyone push, but the fear that clung to her still lingered. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, the woman led them to a quiet grove deep in the forest. The trees here were older, their trunks twisted and gnarled, and the air was thick with magic. "This is a place of power," the woman said, her voice reverberating in the stillness. "Here, the elements are strong. You will test your control over them." Isabella stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had already learned so much, but this was different. This was real. She had to control the elements, or the old ones would destroy everything. The woman placed her hands on a nearby tree and closed her eyes. "Feel the earth beneath you. Feel its heartbeat. You are connected to it, just as you are connected to the child within you." Isabella knelt, placing her hands on the ground. She could feel it. The pulse. The heartbeat of the earth, rhythmic and steady, just like her own. The power surged within her, and for a moment, she felt at one with the earth, at peace with the energy flowing through her. But then, a flicker of doubt crept in. The world around her seemed to darken. The winds began to pick up, howling through the trees, their power building. The fire in the distance flared, its heat rising. She felt it again, the overwhelming power that threatened to consume her. The old ones. Their presence loomed, just out of reach, but close enough to make her skin crawl. Her breath quickened, but then Zane's voice broke through the storm of thoughts in her mind. "Focus, Izzy. You control this. Don't let it control you." With his words grounding her, she clenched her fists and took a deep breath, focusing on the connection she had with the earth, with the wind, with the fire. She wasn't just a vessel for this power. She was its master. The wind settled. The fire dimmed. And the earth beneath her responded, a steady pulse of energy flowing through her, as though the very world was affirming her control. Isabella opened her eyes, a sense of calm washing over her. She had done it. The woman smiled, her expression a mix of pride and something deeper, something older. "You are ready, Isabella. You've proven that you can control it. But now, you must prepare for what comes next." Isabella's heart thudded in her chest. "What comes next?" she asked, her voice tight with anticipation. The woman turned to look at the horizon, her eyes distant. "The old ones are not finished with you. They are gathering their strength. And when they come for you again, you will need everything you've learned, and more. You must make a choice. A choice between surrendering to their will, or fighting with everything you have." Isabella nodded, the weight of the decision sinking in. There was no turning back. She had learned to control the elements, but she had to learn to control herself, too. The path ahead would be treacherous. There would be sacrifices. And no matter how powerful she became, there would always be a price to pay. But as long as she had Zane by her side, and as long as she had her child, she would fight. For herself. For her future. For the world. And she would not lose. Chapter 24, The Tides of War. The days that followed were a blur of preparation, training, and quiet moments of reflection. The ancient stone sanctuary, deep within the heart of the forest, had become their temporary home, safe for the moment, but only for as long as they could keep moving. Isabella had learned to control the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and now, the power within her felt like a force that could shape the world. But controlling it still felt like walking on a razor's edge. Zane remained close, always watching over her, always alert. He had become her anchor, a constant presence in the storm of uncertainty that surrounded them. She could feel the bond between them strengthening with each passing day, the quiet understanding that whatever came next, they would face it together. But the old ones were coming. They could feel it in their bones. The calm before the storm was about to break. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Zane stood by the edge of the forest, his silhouette outlined against the fading light. Isabella joined him, her footsteps quiet on the soft earth, her mind racing with the thoughts of everything that had happened and everything that was to come. "We need a plan," she said, breaking the silence between them. Zane turned to her, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "We've been working toward one. The elements are on your side now. You've learned to wield them, but we need to understand how to strike back. The old ones won't just give up. They won't stop until they get what they want." Isabella nodded, her fingers brushing the stone pendant around her neck, a gift from Zane before their journey began. It was a symbol of their bond, a reminder that they were in this together. And that gave her a strength she hadn't known she was capable of. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firm, but there was a hint of doubt that still lingered beneath her words. "I've learned so much, but it feels like there's still more I don't understand. This power inside me, it's more than just the elements. It's like it's tied to something ancient, something that goes beyond me." Zane looked at her for a long moment, as though he were weighing her words carefully. "It's not just you. It's your child. They're connected. You can feel it, can't you? The way the power stirs when you focus on your child. It's the key." She nodded slowly. She had felt it. The energy growing stronger within her every day, as if her child was not just a part of her, but a force that was awakening the very earth beneath her feet. The woman, the elder who had trained her, had spoken of the child as the key to either saving or destroying everything. Isabella couldn't deny the power that lay inside her, inside the child, but she didn't know how to use it. Not yet. Not in the way that would ensure their survival. "I can feel it," Isabella whispered, her hand moving instinctively to her abdomen. "It's like the earth is waiting for something, for the child to awaken fully. And when it does, I don't know what will happen." Zane's hand rested gently on hers. "You won't be alone when that time comes. We'll face it together. All of it." The sincerity in his voice made her feel a little lighter, though the weight of their situation remained heavy on her shoulders. The old ones weren't just going to give up. They knew about her child. They knew what she was capable of, and they wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. The woman who had been guiding them, she had told Isabella that the key to unlocking the full power within her was understanding her connection to the earth. But there was something else that lingered in the back of Isabella's mind. Something the woman hadn't told her. Isabella looked at Zane, her eyes searching his face. "There's something I don't understand," she said quietly. "The woman who's been training me, she's been teaching me to control the elements. But I've seen her look at me like she knows more than she's telling me. There's something about my child, something I haven't fully grasped. I think she's hiding something from me." Zane's eyes darkened, and he stepped closer, his voice low and serious. "What do you think she's hiding?" "I don't know. But I can feel it. She's been holding back, not telling me everything. She knows more about the child's power, about the connection between the two of us. I need to know what she knows." Zane nodded slowly, his hand tightening around his sword hilt. "Then we'll find out. We can't afford to leave anything to chance." The quiet urgency in his voice made Isabella's stomach tighten. It wasn't just the old ones they had to worry about. It was the uncertainty of what they didn't know, what secrets still lay hidden, just out of reach. The woman had said they were running out of time, but Isabella could feel it now, the pressure building. The moment was approaching, the time when everything would come to a head. And they needed to be ready. Later that evening, they returned to the heart of the sanctuary, where the woman was waiting. The stone walls seemed to vibrate with energy, the runes carved into the stones glowing faintly in the dim light. Isabella stood before the woman, her body tense, her gaze unwavering. "I need to know everything," Isabella said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "About the child. About the power. You've been holding something back, and I need to understand. Now." The woman studied her for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed, as if resigned to the inevitable. "I knew this day would come," she said quietly. "You've grown stronger than I anticipated, Isabella. stronger than any of us could have foreseen. Then tell me what's really happening, Isabella pressed, her hands clenched at her sides. What's inside me? What's inside my child? The woman took a step forward, her eyes filled with something ancient, something Isabella could not quite comprehend. The child within you is the offspring of two powerful worlds. The child is not only the key to the balance, it is the balance itself. Its power is drawn from both the earth and the heavens. From the elemental forces and from the very bloodlines of those who rule over life and death. You carry something more than just a child, Isabella. You carry a force that can either restore or shatter the world. Isabella's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing to process the weight of the woman's words. I'm not just carrying a child. I'm carrying the balance. The woman nodded. Yes. The old ones know this. They seek to control it, to bend the child to their will. But the child cannot be controlled. It is both destruction and creation. And it is the only thing that can stop the old ones from reshaping the world in their image. Isabella stood still, her mind reeling. The child wasn't just a force for good or evil. It was a catalyst, a force of nature itself, tied to the very fabric of existence. What do I need to do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman's gaze softened, but her words were still filled with the weight of centuries. You must choose, Isabella. You must choose whether you will protect the child's power, or whether you will allow the world to fall into the hands of those who would see it destroyed. The balance is in your hands. And the time to act is now. Isabella's heart raced, the magnitude of the choice ahead of her crashing down like a tidal wave. The future of the world, the life of her child, would be determined by what she did next. And she would not let the world burn. Chapter 25, The Choice of Fate. The weight of the woman's words pressed heavily on Isabella's chest, as though the very air around her had thickened, suffocating her. She was carrying not just a child, but the balance of the world itself. The realization was as terrifying as it was overwhelming. The choice before her wasn't just about survival. It was about determining the future of everything: life, death, the elements, the very forces that governed existence. Zane's presence beside her grounded her, but she could feel the fear creeping in. Not for herself, but for her child. For the power inside her, a power that could either restore the world to balance or destroy it entirely. What do you mean? Isabella's voice was barely a whisper, as though saying the words out loud would make the truth too real to bear. I'm supposed to choose between saving my child's life and stopping the old ones? The woman's eyes softened as she stepped closer, her gaze filled with the wisdom of ages. Not exactly, Isabella. The child's power is the key to everything. It is both creation and destruction, life and death. The old ones will stop at nothing to control it, to use it to reshape the world in their image. But if you protect the child, you must be prepared for the consequences. You will either preserve the balance of life, or you will destroy it. Isabella felt her knees weaken, her body betraying her as the gravity of the situation began to sink in. The future of everything, the people she loved, the world itself, hung in the balance. And the power inside her was the deciding factor. But the cost of that choice, the cost of that power, she didn't know if she could carry it. Zane placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his touch firm and warm. You're not alone in this, he said quietly. We face it together. Whatever happens, we do it together. Isabella met his gaze, searching for the strength she knew he had in abundance. His unwavering belief in her was both a comfort and a weight. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for him. For the future they could still have, despite the darkness closing in. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling. But what if I'm not enough? What if I can't control it? What if I lose everything? Zane's hand tightened on her shoulder, his eyes fierce with the fire of determination. You will control it. I believe in you, Izzy. And no matter what happens, we'll figure it out. Together. The woman who had been silent for a moment finally spoke, her voice measured but filled with urgency. The old ones are not a force you can simply fight with raw power alone. You will need to make a choice about how you wield the power within you. The child is the nexus, the fulcrum upon which everything tilts. You must decide whether to fight with it or for it. Fight for it? Isabella repeated, confusion threading her words. What does that mean? The woman's gaze turned somber. You must protect the child's purity. The old ones will seek to corrupt it, to bind it to their will. If you fight with it, if you let the power within you take full control, it will consume you. It will erase everything you care about in the name of balance. But if you fight for it, for the child's right to choose its own path, you may stand a chance at winning. But this choice comes with great sacrifice. Isabella's heart pounded as she tried to process the weight of the decision laid before her. To fight for the child, to protect its purity, meant that she would have to control the power in a way she had never done before. It meant trusting that the child, even as it grew stronger, could make its own choices, could stand against the tide of darkness that threatened to swallow them all. To fight with the power, on the other hand, meant that she would become a weapon, one that could either restore the world or destroy it, but at what cost to her soul? I don't know if I can make that choice, Isabella said softly, her voice breaking. How can I know what's right? I don't want to lose my child. I don't want to fail. You won't fail, Zane said immediately, his voice unwavering. You have to trust yourself. And trust your child. You're not alone in this. You have me. You have the world's strength behind you. But the woman's eyes, cold and ancient, gave Isabella a different kind of warning. The path you choose will alter the course of everything. There will be no going back once you make your decision. And once you awaken the full potential of your power, you will have no choice but to face the old ones head-on. Isabella's chest tightened. The old ones were not going to wait. And the window of time to make a decision was closing rapidly. The moment was near, her child was awakening, the power stirring within her, ready to burst forth. She could feel it deep inside her, the pull of the earth, the fire in her veins, the endless wind sweeping through her thoughts. It was overwhelming. She closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm within her. She focused on her child, on the life that was growing inside her. She could feel the pulse of that life, connected to everything. The elements, the earth, the very heartbeat of the world. She knew, deep down, that the child was part of the earth itself, part of a greater design, and yet still, it was her own. Her heart raced as she whispered, I'll protect you. No matter what. The decision burned inside her. She had no choice but to choose to fight for her child. She would not let it be corrupted. Not by the old ones, not by anyone. She would fight for its future, for its right to choose its own destiny. For the world to have a chance to heal, she needed to keep its purity intact. With that resolve, Isabella opened her eyes. The storm inside her had settled into a calm, focused determination. She was ready. I've made my choice, Isabella said, her voice steady, stronger than it had been in days. I'll fight for my child. For the balance of this world. No matter the cost. The woman gave a slow, approving nod. Then you are ready, Isabella. But remember, this will not be easy. The old ones will come for you. They will test you, break you, force you to question everything you've ever known. But you must stay true to your path. Zane stepped forward, his hand firmly on her shoulder. We will stay true to it. Together. And no matter what comes, we will face it head-on. The woman turned away, gesturing to the stone doorway that led into the deeper chambers of the sanctuary. The time has come. You must prepare yourself. And your child. Isabella followed her, Zane at her side, her heart pounding in her chest. Every step she took felt heavier than the last, but there was a quiet strength building inside her. She was no longer just running. She wasn't just hiding or trying to survive. She was fighting for something bigger than herself. Bigger than even her child. And with Zane by her side, she felt ready. The path ahead would be treacherous. The old ones would not relent. But Isabella had found her strength, and with it, she would face the coming storm. Chapter 26, The Gathering Dark. The air in the sanctuary felt different now. There was no mistaking the shift, it was a tangible, living presence, like the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Isabella could feel the connection between herself and the world deepening, the very elements around her responding to the choice she had made. The power within her swirled, its raw intensity now a part of her, something she could no longer deny. But with that power came an overwhelming responsibility. She wasn't just carrying her child anymore, she was carrying the fate of everything. The weight of it pressed against her chest, but as she walked through the stone halls with Zane at her side, she felt a fierce fire in her heart. She had chosen. She had chosen to fight for her child, to protect it, to ensure that the balance would not tip into chaos. They followed the woman deeper into the sanctuary, into the heart of the place where the old knowledge was kept, where the elements themselves seemed to pulse in the very walls. As they moved, the shadows around them deepened, as if the ancient stones were absorbing their every footstep. "The old ones know you're here," the woman said as they passed through a set of stone doors. The chamber beyond was large, illuminated only by the flickering light of candles and the faint glow of runes carved into the walls. "They will come. It's only a matter of time." Isabella nodded, the words heavy in her mind. She could already feel the pull of their dark energy, a low hum in the distance, like the tide rising to meet her. The old ones were always watching. But this time it would be different. She wasn't running anymore. She had made her choice. The woman stopped in the center of the chamber, gesturing for Isabella to approach the stone altar. The air here was thick with magic, ancient and potent. It hummed, vibrating under her feet. This place felt like the heart of the world itself, as though the very foundation of existence was held together by the power flowing through these walls. "This is where you must prepare," the woman said, her tone serious, but filled with something almost reverent. "Here, you will connect fully with the elements. The balance you seek can only be maintained if you understand the true nature of the child's power. You have to bond with it completely. It is not just your child, it is the embodiment of creation itself." Isabella's heart fluttered in her chest. The idea of fully connecting with the child, of tapping into its power, filled her with both awe and fear. She had always known that the child was more than just a part of her, but hearing the woman speak so directly about the child's connection to the elements, to the world, it made everything seem larger than life itself. Zane's voice broke her thoughts. "Izzy, we're ready for this. You're not alone. We face this together." Isabella smiled at him, her resolve firming. She hadn't come this far to back down now. "I know," she said softly, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." She stepped forward, kneeling before the altar as the woman began to chant softly, a low, melodic hum that seemed to vibrate the air around them. The words were in a language she didn't understand, but as they filled the space, Isabella felt something stir within her. A warmth. A glow that spread from the very depths of her soul. The connection between her and the child deepened, pulling at her heart like an invisible thread. Suddenly, the earth beneath her feet seemed to move. The stones around her trembled, and the wind picked up, sweeping through the chamber in a gust that felt both warm and cold, a mix of creation and destruction. The energy was alive, and Isabella could feel it swirling inside her, pulling at her very essence. It was the child. It was the world. Everything was connected. As she placed her hands on the stone altar, the power inside her surged, and for a brief moment, she saw everything, the earth, the wind, the fire, the water, all of it woven together in a delicate dance, balanced and fragile. But the child, the force inside her, was the center of it all. She could feel its heartbeat in her chest, its pulse synchronizing with hers. Her mind raced. "This is it. This is the power I need to control." The woman's voice grew louder, the chant intensifying, and as the words filled the air, a flash of bright light engulfed the room, blinding her momentarily. She felt herself slip into something deeper, something ancient, her body felt weightless, her mind free of all earthly bounds. She could hear the world. The life of it, the pulse of the earth beneath her, the rush of the wind, the crackling of fire, the flow of water. They were all one. And then, it was as though she saw the future. A vision flashed in her mind, sharp and clear, the old ones, their cold eyes burning with malevolent intent. But there was something else. She was there, standing in their midst, her child growing within her, a light of untold power swirling around them both. The vision vanished as quickly as it had come, leaving Isabella breathless. She staggered forward, but Zane caught her, steadying her. "Izzy? Are you okay?" She nodded, but her eyes were wide, her breath shallow. "I saw it. The future. The child, it's the key. We have to protect it. We have to protect its light." The woman nodded slowly, as though confirming what Isabella already knew. "Yes. The child is the light that will restore balance. But you must keep it pure. The old ones will stop at nothing to corrupt it. They will try to use it for their own ends. You cannot let them." Isabella clenched her fists, her mind made up. The old ones had already come once. And they would come again. But she was ready. She would not let her child be used to reshape the world. She would fight for the future, their future. The woman stepped back, her face unreadable. "Now, you must prepare. The old ones will be here soon. You will not have long to act. And when the time comes, you must decide whether to stand with the child or let the world fall." Zane stepped forward, his eyes fierce with determination. "We stand with you, Izzy. With your child. No matter what." Isabella felt the weight of his words settle in her heart, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt certain of one thing. She wasn't just fighting for her life anymore. She was fighting for something greater. For the balance of the world. For the future. The choice had already been made. And now, it was time to face the storm. Chapter 27, The Storm Approaches. The room was still, save for the faint hum of ancient power in the air. Isabella's chest rose and fell with each breath, her pulse steady but racing with the weight of what lay ahead. The training had been intense, the visions overwhelming, and now, in the quiet of the sanctuary, she could feel it, the calm before the storm. The old ones were coming. She could sense their presence, a dark cloud gathering on the horizon. She could feel the power of the earth stirring beneath her feet, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The child inside her, the very source of this power, was awakening in ways she couldn't fully understand. But she knew one thing for certain: the world was about to change. She stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by Zane and the woman who had guided them. The time had come. The old ones would not wait much longer. Isabella turned to Zane, her eyes locking with his. The unwavering trust in his gaze grounded her. She was no longer that scared girl running from her fate. She was the protector of life. The protector of her child's future. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firm, though a deep part of her still quivered with fear. "I have to do this. For my child. For the world." Zane stepped closer, his hand resting on her shoulder, his touch warm and solid. "You're not alone, Izzy. I'm with you, every step of the way. No matter what happens, we face it together." Isabella nodded, drawing strength from his presence. She didn't know what the future held, but with him by her side, she would face whatever came. The power within her, the bond with her child, the choice to fight for everything she loved, it all felt like a force so vast, so dangerous, that she could no longer contain it. The woman who had been silent until now spoke once more, her voice steady and commanding. "You are ready. But remember, Isabella, the child inside you is not just a force. It is a reflection of balance itself. You must protect it from the old ones, but you must also be prepared to let it make its own choice. If you fight for it, you fight for its purity. Its right to exist on its own terms." Isabella nodded, though the weight of those words felt heavy in her chest. Her child was not just a weapon. It was a living being, with its own destiny. She couldn't allow the old ones to control it. She couldn't let them take the purity of what her child was meant to be. Zane's voice broke through her thoughts again. We don't know how long we have. They'll be here soon, won't they? The woman's eyes darkened, and she stepped back from the altar, her face solemn. Yes. They're already on their way. You have no time to waste. The air around them seemed to thicken as the woman gestured toward the doorway. Isabella could feel it, the hum of ancient power vibrating beneath her feet. It was as though the sanctuary itself was holding its breath, waiting for the confrontation that was coming. She took a deep breath, stepping toward the door, her heart racing. This was it. The moment she had trained for. The moment everything she had worked for would either save the world or destroy it. Zane stood beside her, his hand resting protectively at her back. You can do this, he said, his voice calm but filled with a quiet fire. Together, we can stop them. They moved through the doorway, the world outside now a shadow of the calm that had once existed. The wind had picked up, howling through the trees as if the very elements were bracing for the storm. Isabella could feel the pressure building in the air, the storm of magic swirling, ready to explode. As they reached the clearing outside the sanctuary, Isabella stopped, her eyes scanning the horizon. There was something on the wind, an unnatural presence, a creeping coldness that sent a shiver down her spine. And then, from the trees, they emerged. The old ones. Their figures were enormous, towering over them with an ancient power that seemed to bend the very air around them. Their eyes glowed with the same sickly light that had filled the darkened chamber back in the sanctuary. They were here for her. Here for her child. The golden-eyed leader stepped forward, its form flickering like a shadow. You have no idea what you're truly dealing with, Isabella, it said, its voice echoing with centuries of malice. The child inside you is not just a weapon. It is the weapon. And you, dear girl, will learn what true power means. Isabella stepped forward, her body trembling, but her voice strong. I won't let you control it. I won't let you use my child to destroy the world. The old one's laughter echoed, deep and unsettling. You cannot stop what you do not understand, child. We are the masters of this world. You are nothing more than an obstacle. A cold shiver ran through her, but Isabella stood her ground. She wasn't just standing here alone. She had the elements at her command. She had the power of life itself running through her veins. She had her child's strength. And she would use it. Zane stepped beside her, his sword drawn, his eyes locked on the approaching figures. We won't let you take her. We won't let you win. The golden-eyed leader's smile twisted into something darker, more predatory. You will submit, it hissed. The child is the key. It will either break the world or restore it to the balance we seek. We will decide which it will be. Isabella closed her eyes, focusing on the energy inside her. The earth, the wind, the fire, the water, they were all within her. All connected to her child. She felt their pulse, their rhythm, their life. She felt the power swelling, surging, ready to be unleashed. And then she raised her hands. The ground beneath her feet trembled, the wind picking up into a deafening roar. The sky above darkened as though the very heavens were responding to her call. Fire burst from the trees, curling around her in a protective barrier, while water from the nearby stream rose in a twisting column of mist. The earth cracked and shifted, twisting like a living creature, responding to her will. For the first time, Isabella felt the full scope of the power that had been building inside her. She wasn't just using the elements. She was becoming them. They were a part of her. And she would not let the old ones take what was hers. The golden-eyed leader recoiled, its eyes flashing with rage. You think you can control this? You are nothing. But Isabella didn't back down. The storm inside her surged again, a flood of power that crackled in the air, tearing through the old one's defenses. You're wrong, Isabella said, her voice calm, but filled with the strength of the world itself. I am not nothing. I am everything. With a forceful cry, she thrust her hands forward, and the elements responded, bursting forth in a wave of raw, untamed power. The earth split open beneath the old ones, fire swirling around them, wind howling in a violent storm that ripped through the trees. The ground beneath them buckled as water surged forward, crashing into their defenses. For a moment, everything stood still, the earth holding its breath, the storm quieting, as though the world was watching. And then the old ones began to retreat, their figures flickering like shadows as the power of the elements overwhelmed them. Isabella stood, breathing heavily, her hands still raised as the energy within her began to subside. She had done it. They had done it. For now. Zane stepped forward, his expression one of awe and pride. You did it, Izzy. But Isabella didn't feel victorious. She felt exhausted. The power had drained her, and she could still feel the presence of the old ones lingering in the distance, watching, waiting. They had only been repelled, for now. The battle was far from over. We can't stop here, Isabella said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. They will come again. And next time, we'll be ready. Zane nodded, his gaze determined. Together. And together, they would face whatever came next. Because the storm had only just begun. Chapter 28, The Aftermath. The world around them was eerily still, as though the very earth was recovering from the violent surge of power that had just surged through it. Isabella stood at the center of the clearing, her breathing heavy, her heart still pounding from the intensity of the battle. She could feel the power within her, still pulsing beneath her skin, but it was different now. More dangerous. More alive. Zane was by her side, his presence a steady anchor in the aftermath of the storm they had unleashed. He didn't speak immediately, but his eyes never left her, as though he was waiting for something, waiting for her to regain herself, to process everything that had happened. Isabella's mind was a whirl of thoughts. The old ones had been driven back, but only temporarily. She could feel it in the air, their presence, lurking just beyond the edges of the world, waiting for their next opportunity to strike. They were powerful, ancient, and they would stop at nothing to control her child. She clenched her fists at her sides, the remnants of the energy still crackling in the air around her, ready to explode again if needed. But it was a double-edged sword. She had tapped into something vast, something that could either save or destroy everything. I did it, she whispered, almost to herself. I really did it. Zane's voice was low but filled with pride. You did. You held them off. You were amazing. Isabella turned to him, her eyes meeting his. There was something in his gaze, something deeper than just admiration. He was proud of her, yes, but there was also a quiet fear in his eyes. He had seen her wield the elements. He had seen her tap into something ancient, and while he knew she was strong, he also knew how dangerous this power was. I feel it, she said, her voice H. Zane's hand rested on her shoulder, grounding her. But you controlled it when it mattered. That's what counts. You're learning how to use it. And you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together. But Isabella knew the truth. It wasn't just about learning to control it. It was about surviving it. The power inside her was growing, and every time she tapped into it, it felt like she was one step closer to losing herself completely. The woman who had been training them, the elder of the sanctuary, stepped forward from the shadows, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. She had watched the battle unfold, and now she studied Isabella with the same unspoken weight. You are beginning to understand the depth of the child's power, the woman said softly, her voice like the rustle of ancient leaves. But this is only the beginning. You've felt it, haven't you? The pull of it. The call of the old ones. Isabella nodded slowly, her chest tightening. I feel them. I feel their hunger. They won't stop. They won't rest until they have what's inside me. The woman's gaze was unyielding, her face carved with the wisdom of ages. You are the child's protector, Isabella. And you must be prepared to face what comes next. The old ones will not relent. You will not be able to defeat them with force alone. You must understand the balance, the delicate thread that ties you, your child, and this world together. If you do not, everything will fall. Isabella's heart sank at the gravity of her words. She had known it was coming, but hearing it out loud, from someone who had lived through the ages, made it all the more real. She wasn't just fighting for her life or her child's life anymore. She was fighting for the balance of the entire world. The woman stepped closer, her gaze fixed on Isabella's with an intensity that seemed to burn through her. The old ones are the keepers of a law older than time itself. They seek to impose their vision of balance. A vision that only benefits them. If you are to stop them, you must embrace the power within you, but you must not let it control you. You must find the strength to choose the world's fate. Not the old ones, not your child, you. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. How am I supposed to do that? How do I keep control of something so powerful? Something so dangerous? The woman's eyes softened, but her voice remained unwavering. You must remember that you are not just the child's protector. You are its guide. You must help it understand its own purpose. It is not just a tool to be wielded, it is a force of creation and destruction, and it has a destiny of its own. Zane stepped forward, his eyes full of determination. How do we help it? How do we keep it pure? The woman's gaze flickered between them, a hint of something ancient stirring in her eyes. You must teach the child to embrace both its power and its responsibility. Only then can it choose its own path. The old ones will seek to corrupt it, but if you help the child understand its role in the world, it will have the strength to resist them. Isabella's mind swirled with questions. The child had a role. It had a destiny. But what did that mean for her? And how could she ensure that the child would not fall prey to the darkness that sought to claim it? I don't know if I'm ready for this, Isabella whispered, the weight of everything pressing down on her. You are ready, the woman said firmly. You may not feel ready, but you have already proven your strength. You are not just a mother. You are the guardian of balance. And you will face what's coming with everything you have. For the child. For the world. Isabella nodded slowly, though the fear still lingered at the edges of her mind. She could feel the child stirring within her, a pulse of life that seemed to echo in time with the rhythm of the earth itself. She wasn't just carrying a child. She was carrying the future. And that future was uncertain. The old ones would come again. They would come with more force. More power. More deception. But she would be ready. She had to be. The night seemed to stretch on, thick with the weight of the unknown. The clearing around them was still, the air heavy with the scent of the earth and the distant hum of the elements. Isabella stood at the center, her hands raised as she felt the world itself breathing beneath her feet. Zane's hand brushed against hers, a reminder that she was not alone. Together, they would face the coming storm. And when the old ones returned, they would find that the balance was no longer in their hands. It was in hers. Chapter 29, The Storm Breaks. The wind howled through the trees as the night grew darker, the air thick with the weight of what was to come. Isabella stood at the edge of the clearing, her hands outstretched as the elements swirled around her. The earth beneath her feet pulsed with life, the wind whispered secrets in her ear, the fire crackled in the distance, and the water in the nearby stream seemed to hum with an ancient energy. She could feel it, the connection to the child growing inside her, to the world around her, to the very forces that shaped life and death. And yet, despite the calm she tried to center herself in, there was an undeniable tension in the air. It was only a matter of time before the old ones returned, and when they did, they would stop at nothing to take what was inside her. The key. The balance. The power to either destroy or restore the world. Zane stood by her side, his eyes scanning the horizon, ever vigilant. He had been her rock, her protector, throughout this entire journey, but she knew the truth now, they were in this together. It was no longer just about survival. It was about saving everything they both held dear. She turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. We can't stay here much longer. The old ones will find us. Zane's gaze softened as he met her eyes, his expression both fierce and full of concern. We won't let them. I'll keep you safe. You know that. Isabella nodded, but a part of her could feel the weight of what lay ahead. This wasn't about safety anymore. It was about fighting for everything. For her child. For the future. For the world. The woman, the elder who had guided them in their training, stepped forward from the shadows, her face unreadable. The time is near, she said quietly. The old ones will come for you, and when they do, they will not be alone. They have already begun to gather their forces. Isabella's heart sank. How long do we have? Not long, the woman replied, her voice filled with quiet urgency. You must make your stand soon. The longer you wait, the more vulnerable you will become. The child is the key to everything. If you don't act now, the old ones will control it. And with it, they will reshape the world in their image. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. I can't let that happen. I won't. The woman nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of pride and sorrow. You must not only protect the child, but also help it find its path. The power within it is vast. Too vast for anyone to control. Not even the old ones. If you stand together, you may have a chance. Zane stepped closer to Isabella, his hand finding hers, grounding her. We'll figure it out, Izzy. We'll protect the child, and we'll stop the old ones. Together. The woman's expression softened, but there was no time for comfort now. The old ones are coming. The time for words is over. You must prepare for battle. And when it comes, you must remember, your child is the key. But you are the guardian of its fate. Isabella nodded, her resolve hardening. The storm was coming. The old ones would not stop until they had what they wanted. But she was ready. She had to be. Where do we go? Isabella asked, her voice steady despite the chaos brewing in her chest. The woman turned toward the dense forest, the path ahead dark and uncertain. Follow me. There is a place where you will have the strength to face them. But you must move quickly. The moment the old ones find out where you are, they will stop at nothing to destroy you. Zane gave her a determined look, squeezing her hand. Lead the way. The journey through the forest was silent except for the sound of their footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves. Isabella could feel the weight of the forest surrounding them, its ancient energy whispering through the trees. The world itself felt alive, but it also felt like it was holding its breath. The woman led them to a small clearing, hidden deep within the trees. In the center, there was a stone circle, an ancient altar, weathered by time, its surface etched with runes and symbols. The air here felt different, thicker, charged with magic. This is the place, the woman said, her voice reverberating through the silence. Here, you will connect fully with the power that lies within you. The child's power. The balance. Isabella's heart raced as she stepped into the center of the circle. The runes on the stones began to glow faintly, as though they were responding to her presence. She could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the power within her and her child, drawing closer to this moment. Zane stepped beside her, his presence solid and unwavering. We're ready, he said softly, his voice filled with conviction. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Isabella nodded, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. She had made her choice. She was no longer just a mother. She was the guardian of balance. The protector of life and death. The woman stepped back, her eyes locked on Isabella. When the old ones come, you must be ready to stand against them. They will try to break you. They will test you. But you must not waver. The power within you is greater than they realize. And with it, you can change the course of everything. Isabella closed her eyes, focusing on the power within her. The earth. The fire. The wind. The water. It all connected to her. It was all within her. And the child, it was the center of it all. She could feel it now, the steady rhythm of its heartbeat, the power that pulsed from within her. The child was a force of nature. And she, its protector, had to learn to wield it. The wind picked up, the air thickening with energy as Isabella raised her hands. She could feel the power surging, growing stronger, coiling inside her like a storm about to break. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't running. She was in control. The woman's voice echoed through her mind. Feel the connection. The child's power. The earth's heartbeat. You are its keeper. You are its guide. With that final command, Isabella felt the surge of energy rise from the depths of the earth, coursing through her veins, through her very soul. She felt the child's presence, its power intertwining with her own, and the world seemed to bend around her. The sky darkened, the wind howled, the ground trembled beneath her feet. She opened her eyes, her breath steady, her gaze locked on the horizon. "They're coming," Zane said, his voice tense. "Are you ready?" Isabella looked at him, her eyes filled with fierce determination. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "We fight for everything. For my child. For our future." The first crack of thunder echoed through the sky, followed by a deafening roar of wind. And from the shadows of the forest, the old ones emerged. Chapter 30, The Battle for the Balance. The ground beneath their feet trembled as the first rumble of thunder shook the air. The sky overhead had darkened, as if the very heavens had sensed the gathering storm. The old ones were here, their presence a suffocating force, their power as ancient and unyielding as the earth itself. They emerged from the shadows of the forest, their eyes glowing with dark intent, their forms towering and ethereal, each step they took causing the ground to crack and shift beneath them. Isabella's heart pounded, but she remained calm, feeling the pulse of her own power rising to meet them. The storm inside her, the elements, the child, everything that had been building within her, all converged in this moment. The time had come. Zane's hand found hers, squeezing it tightly, a silent promise that they would face this together. "You're ready, Izzy. We've trained for this. You've got the power inside you. You can do this." She nodded, her eyes never leaving the approaching figures. "We'll do it together," she replied softly, though the words were filled with a fierce determination. "We have to." The woman, the elder who had guided them, stood silently at the edge of the circle, her face etched with sorrow and strength. She had trained Isabella, had taught her to connect with the elements, to wield the earth's power, to embrace the storm. But now, it was up to Isabella to prove that she had learned, that she was strong enough to carry the weight of what lay ahead. The first of the old ones stepped forward, its golden eyes gleaming with cold, calculated malice. "You think you can stop us, little wolf?" it hissed, its voice like the grinding of stone, deep and resonant. "You are nothing. The child inside you is ours. And you will submit." Isabella's chest tightened, but she stood her ground, her hands trembling as she raised them to the sky. The power inside her surged, pushing against the limits she had once feared. The earth beneath her feet rumbled, and the wind howled, bending to her will. The child's power stirred, a reminder of everything she had chosen to protect. "I will never submit," Isabella's voice rang out, firm and unwavering. "This child is mine to protect. I will fight for it. And I will fight for the balance." A low, mocking laugh escaped from the old one's lips. "You are just a child yourself, playing at forces far beyond your understanding. You will see how easily you fall." The other old ones moved forward, their eyes glowing with the same hunger, the same twisted desire for control. The air around them crackled with dark energy, as though they were pulling the very life force from the world itself. The storm that had been building within Isabella's heart, the power of the earth, the elements, they surged at her command, but she knew it wasn't enough. She needed more. Her hand shook with the effort of holding it back. The child stirred inside her, and Isabella could feel its presence growing stronger with every passing second. It wasn't just her fight anymore. It was theirs. It was theirs. Isabella closed her eyes for a moment, grounding herself in the energy beneath her, in the power of the elements. She felt the heartbeat of the earth, the pulse of the wind, the flicker of fire, the flow of water, all of it was within her. All of it connected to her child. And as she focused on that connection, she felt something shift inside her. A deeper understanding. A clarity. It wasn't just about control. It was about balance. The power within her and her child was neither good nor evil. It simply was. And only by embracing both sides, the light and the dark, could she truly harness its strength. She opened her eyes, and the world around her seemed to shift. The storm intensified, the wind howling, the earth cracking open, fire swirling in the distance. She could feel the old one's power pressing against her, but it no longer felt like something she had to fight. It felt like a force she could bend, a force she could control, just as she had learned to control the elements. Zane's voice broke through the chaos. "Izzy, we've got this. You're in control. We fight together." She nodded, and with a single, determined movement, she raised her hands high to the sky. The power within her, the connection with the child, all of it, she released it. A wave of energy exploded from her body, a surge of raw, untamed force that shook the very ground beneath them. The old ones were thrown back by the sheer intensity of the blast, their forms flickering in and out of existence as the power rippled outward. Isabella's breath was steady now, her body alight with the energy of the world itself. She was no longer just wielding the elements. She was one with them. And the old ones had underestimated her. They rose again, more furious than ever, their eyes glowing with rage. "You cannot stop us, Isabella," the golden-eyed leader growled. "The child will be ours. It is destined to serve the balance we seek." Isabella's gaze hardened. "No," she said, her voice calm, yet filled with the full weight of her resolve. "The child is mine. And I will protect it." With a wave of her hand, the earth beneath the old ones began to shift again, great cracks opening up around them, swallowing their feet. The trees around them bent and twisted, the fire in the distance surging toward them, as the water rose in violent waves. But the golden-eyed leader was not done. It raised its hands, and dark tendrils of energy shot out, attempting to tear at the fabric of Isabella's control. But she was ready. She focused on the child, on the power flowing from her and into the world, and with a roar, she summoned everything she had left. The earth responded, the wind howling, the fire roaring, the water crashing against the dark energy that threatened to consume them. The battle raged, the elements clashing in a storm of raw power, but Isabella remained firm, her hands steady, her heart focused on the child that was her strength. The old ones faltered. The darkness that had once consumed everything around them began to crack. The earth beneath them shifted, pulling them into the very roots of the world itself, as though the land had turned against them. "No," the golden-eyed leader screamed, its voice filled with fury and disbelief. "This cannot be. You will submit." But Isabella didn't. She wouldn't. With one final burst of energy, she forced the old ones back, the power of the elements swirling around her like a protective barrier. The earth trembled as the last of their strength was drained, and the storm finally began to settle. The old ones, their forms flickering and disintegrating, were driven back into the shadows from which they had come. Isabella stood, her chest heaving, her body exhausted, but victorious. The world around her seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, the storm calming, the elements falling back into place. Zane was by her side instantly, his hand on her arm. "We did it," he said, awe in his voice. Isabella nodded, but the fear still lingered in her chest. She had won this battle, but she knew the war was far from over. The old ones would return. And when they did, she would be ready. Her gaze turned to the sky, the first rays of dawn breaking through the darkness. The world had changed. And she had changed with it. But the balance was still fragile. And now, more than ever, she had to protect it. The child, her child, was the key. And together, they would face whatever came next. Chapter 31, The Calm After the Storm. The first rays of dawn crept slowly across the sky, painting the world in soft shades of pink and gold. The storm that had raged through the forest only moments ago had subsided, the air now calm, almost eerily so. The remnants of the battle, cracked earth, scorched trees, and scorched air, still lingered around them. The clash between Isabella and the Old Ones had left its mark, but now, the world seemed to hold its breath. The power of the elements still hummed faintly beneath Isabella's skin, like an echo of what had transpired, a reminder that the balance had been temporarily restored. Isabella's legs were unsteady beneath her, and she could feel the weight of exhaustion pulling at her body. She had given everything she had, fought with every ounce of strength, every shred of her will, and now, for a brief moment, it felt like a release. The storm inside her had calmed, the raw power of the elements settling into something quieter, something she could manage. Zane stood beside her, his hand gently resting on her back, offering his support as they both took in the aftermath. His eyes were filled with something she hadn't seen before, pride, certainly, but also concern. He had witnessed her wielding unimaginable power, had seen her become the conduit for forces older than anything they had encountered. "You did it, Izzy," Zane murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace that had settled around them. Isabella turned to him, her eyes tired but resolute. "We did it," she corrected, her voice steady despite the lingering tremor in her hands. "But it's not over. I can feel it. They'll be back." Zane nodded, his expression darkening, but he didn't speak. He didn't need to. They both knew the Old Ones would return, and when they did, they would be stronger. They had tasted the child's power. They knew what Isabella could do. They would stop at nothing to claim it. The woman, the elder who had guided them through the storm, stepped forward from the shadows, her face unreadable. She had been watching the battle unfold, and now, she surveyed the clearing with a gaze that seemed to see beyond the wreckage of the battle. "The Old Ones are relentless," she said, her voice low but filled with a quiet sorrow. "They will come again, but you have done something they did not expect. You have proven that you are more than just a vessel. You are the keeper of balance. You have the power to choose." Isabella's heart clenched at her words. The woman was right. She had proven herself in battle. But the true test was yet to come. She wasn't just fighting for her survival anymore. She was fighting for the world. "What happens now?" Isabella asked, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and uncertainty. "How do we stop them from coming back? How do we keep them from taking everything?" The woman's gaze was solemn, her eyes dark with the knowledge of ages. "The Old Ones seek control. They seek to impose their vision of balance, to use your child as the ultimate tool in their twisted design. But you must not let them. You must protect the purity of the child's power." "But how?" Zane asked, his voice sharp with determination. "How can we stop them? We can't fight them alone." "You will not be alone," the woman said, her voice firm. "The key lies in the child. It will either restore balance or break it. You must help the child understand its power, help it choose its own path. The more you help it grow, the stronger it will become. And with that strength, you will have the power to fight back." Isabella's mind raced as the woman's words sank in. Help the child choose its path? That was the key. The Old Ones had wanted to corrupt it, bend it to their will. But Isabella had the choice to shape the child's future, to help it grow strong enough to resist them. And as the realization settled over her, she felt the child stir within her. A pulse of life, of warmth, of something ancient. She was no longer just a mother. She was a guide, a protector, a force of nature. "We can do this," Isabella said, her voice filled with newfound resolve. "We will fight for the child's future. We will protect it. And when the Old Ones return, we will stand against them. Together." The woman nodded, her eyes filled with both pride and sadness. "You must. The balance depends on it." Isabella looked out across the battlefield, the remnants of the storm that had ravaged the clearing still hanging in the air. The battle was over for now, but the war had only just begun. She could feel it in the very bones of the earth beneath her, in the pulse of the elements around her. The storm was coming again. But this time, she wouldn't fight alone. And she wouldn't let the world fall into darkness. "We need to move," Zane said suddenly, his eyes scanning the trees. "We can't stay here much longer. The old ones will find us again, and they'll be looking for weaknesses." Isabella nodded, her gaze still fixed on the horizon. The winds had died down, but there was still an unnatural stillness in the air. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered. The woman stepped back, her eyes filled with something deeper than just knowledge. "You must go. There is a place where you will find refuge, where the power of the child can be fully realized. You will need to prepare for the trials ahead." Zane turned to Isabella, his expression resolute. "Where do we go?" The woman gestured toward the distant mountains. "There is an ancient temple hidden deep within the mountains. It is a place of great power, where the child can learn its true purpose. But the path is treacherous. You will face trials that will test both of you. But it is the only place where you can prepare for what comes." Isabella's eyes hardened with determination. "Then that's where we're going." She turned to Zane, her heart beating faster as the thought of their journey ahead sank in. The temple in the mountains would be their next destination, the place where she would fully embrace the power within her, and the power of the child. But the trials would be difficult. The road ahead would not be easy. But Isabella wasn't afraid. She had chosen this path, and she would walk it, no matter what came. For herself. For her child. For the world. "Let's go," she said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "We fight for the future. We fight for the child." And with that, she and Zane began their journey toward the mountains, toward the ancient temple that would unlock the next chapter in their fight. The storm had passed, but the real battle was yet to come. Chapter 32, The Path to the Temple. The road ahead was long, winding through the dense forest and into the rugged terrain that led toward the distant mountains. The ancient temple the woman had spoken of was nestled deep within the high peaks, hidden from the eyes of most, protected by trials that only the worthy could face. Isabella could feel the weight of the journey ahead, the uncertainty of what lay at the end, but there was a quiet resolve in her heart. Every step she took felt like a step deeper into her destiny. The power that surged within her, the connection to the child, the elements, they were all guiding her toward this place. But there was still something she didn't fully understand. The woman had said the child was the key. But key to what? How did she help it choose its path? How did she make sure it grew strong enough to face the darkness that would inevitably come? Zane walked beside her, his presence a steadying force in the uncertainty of the journey. He was always there, never faltering, always strong, always calm in the face of the unknown. The bond between them had grown even stronger since the battle with the old ones. They had fought together, and now, they would face whatever came next, together. "Izzy," Zane's voice broke the silence, his gaze focused on the rocky path ahead. "We'll get there. Whatever comes, we'll face it. And when we reach the temple, you'll find the answers you need." Isabella glanced at him, a small smile pulling at the corners of her lips. "I hope so. I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to do. I feel the power, I feel the child, but I don't know how to use it the right way." Zane stopped for a moment, turning to face her. His eyes were full of quiet understanding. "Izzy, the answers will come. You've already proven you have the strength. You don't need to have all the answers now. You just need to trust yourself. Trust the child. Trust the balance that you and the child share." Isabella nodded, but the doubt still lingered in the back of her mind. She had chosen to protect the child, to fight for it, but what if she made the wrong choice? What if, in the end, she couldn't stop the old ones from claiming it? Zane seemed to sense her hesitation. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch tender but firm. "You're not alone in this. We're in this together. And you're stronger than you think." His words brought a surge of warmth through her, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that everything might be okay. Together, they could face anything. The path grew steeper as they climbed higher, the trees thinning and the air growing colder. The mountains loomed before them, their peaks shrouded in mist and mystery. Isabella could feel the power within her intensifying with each step. The temple was near. It was as if the very land itself was guiding them, urging them forward. By the time they reached the base of the mountain, the sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape. The air was thin, the wind biting, and the ground beneath their feet became more uneven with each step. Isabella felt the weight of the journey, the exhaustion of the long trek, but there was something else. Something electric in the air. "We're close," Zane said, his voice low as he glanced around the darkening landscape. "The temple is just ahead." Isabella nodded, her heart racing as she took in the rocky cliffs ahead. There was a deep sense of purpose driving her forward, but also a quiet fear of what awaited them, fear of what she might have to face inside the temple. The trials, the tests, they wouldn't be easy. But she had no choice. The temple was hidden in the craggy peaks, a small, ancient structure carved into the rock itself. It was nearly invisible from a distance, a place that had been kept secret for centuries, away from the eyes of those who would seek its power. Isabella could feel its presence, the power radiating from the stone like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. As they approached the entrance, a heavy stone door loomed before them, inscribed with symbols that Isabella had never seen before. The air around it seemed to hum, charged with an energy that made her skin prickle. She placed her hand on the stone, and for a brief moment, a pulse of energy surged through her, as though the temple itself recognized her touch. Zane stepped beside her, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Are you ready for this?" Isabella took a deep breath, her hand still pressed against the cool stone. "I don't think there's any other choice." The woman's words echoed in her mind. "The child is the key. But you are the guardian of its fate." Isabella wasn't just here to find the answers. She was here to unlock them, to help the child find its path. And to do that, she had to face the trials ahead. Trials that would test not just her strength, but her very resolve. With a soft, rumbling sound, the stone door shifted, slowly opening before them, revealing a darkened hallway that stretched deep into the heart of the mountain. The air inside was cool, damp, and filled with an ancient stillness. Isabella could feel the weight of the history in the walls around her. Zane moved ahead, his sword ready, his senses alert. "Stay close. We don't know what's waiting for us inside." Isabella followed him, her pulse quickening as they moved further into the darkness. The walls were adorned with ancient carvings, symbols of power and wisdom that she couldn't fully understand. But there was no time to study them. She could feel it, the temple was alive, as if the very stones were watching them. They reached a large chamber at the end of the hallway, the stone walls glowing faintly with an ethereal light. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it lay an ancient book, its pages worn and yellowed with age. The room was empty, save for the pedestal, the book, and the stillness that seemed to fill every corner. "This is it," Isabella whispered, her voice echoing in the silence. "This is where the answers are." Zane nodded, stepping closer to the pedestal, his eyes wary. "Be careful. Whatever happens next, stay focused." Isabella moved toward the pedestal, the weight of the book pulling at her. She reached out, her fingers brushing the ancient pages, and as she did, a surge of power shot through her, a shock that rattled her bones. The book seemed to pulse in her hands, and suddenly, the air around them grew thick with an electric charge. A low rumbling echoed from deep within the mountain. The room began to shift. The floor trembled beneath their feet. And then, from the shadows, figures emerged. Isabella froze. They were not alone. Chapter 33, The Guardians of the Temple. The air in the chamber shifted, growing heavier with each passing second. Isabella's heart raced as the dark figures slowly materialized from the shadows, their forms flickering and shifting like specters from another time. The room, once calm and filled with an ethereal stillness, now seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the energy thickening, becoming tangible. Zane stepped closer to her, his sword drawn, ready for whatever threat loomed in the darkness. Stay behind me, he murmured, his voice low but steady, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Isabella's hand tightened around the book in her grip, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the figures. They were tall, cloaked in ancient robes that seemed to shimmer and shift with the dim light. Their eyes glowed faintly, the light within them cold and unblinking, like the remnants of some long-dead power. "Who are you?" Isabella demanded, her voice strong despite the growing unease in her chest. The power inside her stirred, responding to the tension in the room, but she forced herself to keep it in check. Now was not the time to lose control. One of the figures stepped forward, its movements graceful yet unsettlingly otherworldly. The air around it seemed to hum with a quiet, ancient power, a presence so old that it felt like it was woven into the very fabric of the temple itself. "We are the Guardians," the figure spoke, its voice deep, almost resonating with the very walls around them. "We have watched over this place for centuries. And we have watched you." Isabella's stomach tightened. She didn't have to ask what they meant. The Guardians had been waiting for her, for the child, for the moment when the balance would tip and the child's power would either restore or destroy the world. "What do you want with us?" she asked, trying to steady her breath, to not let her fear betray her. The Guardian's eyes glimmered with something between pity and ancient wisdom. "We want nothing with you, Isabella. You are but a tool, a vessel for the child. You have come here because you seek answers. You seek the knowledge to control what you do not fully understand." Zane shifted beside her, his grip tightening on his sword, sensing the rising tension. "I don't care what you are," he said, his voice unwavering. "If you stand in our way, we'll fight. We've come too far to back down now." The Guardian's gaze flickered to Zane, its eyes cold and unreadable. "You are not the one we seek. It is her, the mother of the child, who must face the trials ahead. You may protect her, but she must be the one to choose the path." Isabella's heart pounded in her chest. "The trials?" "Yes," the Guardian replied. "You have come to the Temple of the Balance. Here, you will face the trials of the elements, the tests that will prove your worth, your strength, and your understanding of the power you wield. Only then will you be able to unlock the full potential of the child within you." The room seemed to contract around her as the weight of the words sank in. The trials were not just about strength or magic. They were about something far deeper, something connected to the very essence of her existence, of the child, of the balance that she now carried. The Guardian stepped closer, its form flickering with ancient light. "If you are found wanting, if you fail, the child will be lost to the old ones. And the balance will be shattered forever." Zane immediately stepped between Isabella and the Guardian, his body stiff with protectiveness. "I'll fight, too. I won't let them hurt you." Isabella's heart swelled at the sight of his unwavering devotion, but she knew what had to be done. She turned to him, her hand gently resting on his arm. "Zane, this is something I have to do. It's my fight now." The expression on his face was torn, pride and fear warring in his eyes. "Izzy, I won't let them take it from me," she said softly, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "I won't let them take our future." Zane hesitated for a moment longer, but then he nodded, stepping back reluctantly. "I'll be right here. Whatever happens." Isabella turned back to face the Guardians, her mind sharpening, her resolve hardening. The room seemed to grow even more still, the air thick with power, as if the very walls of the temple were watching her, waiting for her to make her move. "You must face the first trial," the Guardian said. "It will test your control of the earth, your understanding of its depths and its power. You will have to prove that you can bend it to your will, or it will bend you." The temple itself seemed to shudder with those words, the air growing thick with a hum of energy, as though the very stone beneath her feet was alive, watching, listening. Isabella took a deep breath. She could feel it. The earth beneath her, alive with the pulse of power, as if it was waiting for her to command it. She felt the child stir within her, the connection to the world's elements stronger than ever before. The power was there, deep within her, but now she needed to focus it, to control it. She couldn't let the trial consume her. The guardian's voice echoed in the chamber. You must understand the earth. Not as a force to be controlled, but as a living being. To bend the earth to your will, you must first become one with it. The ground beneath her feet trembled as the walls of the temple began to shift. Cracks formed in the stone, and the earth groaned, as though it was waking from a long slumber. The first trial had begun. Isabella stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest, her hands rising as she focused all her energy on the ground beneath her. The earth trembled again, the cracks deepening, the stones shaking. She could feel the power. It was overwhelming, like an ocean of energy crashing against her, threatening to pull her under. But she had to stay strong. She had to stay focused. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, sinking into the earth beneath her, feeling its pulse, its heartbeat. She wasn't just controlling it. She was becoming it. She could feel the life within it, the roots that twisted deep beneath the ground, the way the stones shifted and moved, the way the earth responded to the winds, to the fire, to the water. And then, she felt it, an overwhelming surge of power. The earth responded to her, not as a tool, but as an ally. The stones began to rise, swirling around her like living creatures, shifting and moving with her command. The cracks in the ground began to heal, the earth stitching itself together as she focused. But the power didn't stop there. She could feel the old one's influence, creeping at the edges of her mind, trying to corrupt the connection she had with the earth, to bend it to their will. The earth trembled again, but this time, it was a tremor of fear, as if it, too, was trying to resist. Isabella took a deep breath, letting the earth's energy flow through her, steadying her. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everything, for her child, for the balance. And then, with one final burst of energy, she commanded the earth to settle. The tremor stopped. The stones, the roots, the power, all of it fell into place, the balance restored. The earth, for now, was hers. The guardians were silent for a long moment. Isabella opened her eyes slowly, her chest heaving, but her heart steady. She had passed the first trial. She had proven that she could control the earth. The guardian finally spoke, its voice soft but filled with something that resembled approval. You have passed the first trial, Isabella. But this is only the beginning. There are more trials to come, and each will test you in ways you cannot imagine. Isabella nodded, her determination growing. I'm ready. The guardian's eyes flickered with a strange light. We shall see. And with that, the next trial began. Chapter 34, The Trial of Fire. Isabella's heart raced, her pulse still thrumming from the first trial. The earth had responded to her, but it had been only the beginning. She had passed that first test, but the power she had felt within her was only a small part of the force that now moved through her. The child inside her stirred once again, its energy pulsing in time with her heartbeat. But she knew, deep in her bones, that she couldn't let the child's power control her. She had to stay grounded, focused, to remain the guardian of its fate. The guardians, who had been silent during the trial, now stepped forward, their forms flickering like shadows. The air around them seemed to grow thicker, charged with energy. Their glowing eyes locked onto Isabella, waiting, watching. The room shifted around her, the stone walls seemed to bend, the temperature rising rapidly, the ground beneath her feet becoming warmer. The fire that had been a part of her journey from the very beginning, now it was time to face it. To control it. To become it. The next trial, the guardian intoned, its voice deep and resonant, is the trial of fire. You must show that you can command the fire within you, not just the fire of the earth. You must tame the flame that burns within, or it will consume you. Isabella's breath caught. Tame the flame within me? The guardian raised a hand, and with it, the temperature of the room soared. The stones beneath her feet began to heat, and the air shimmered with the intensity of the rising heat. The room transformed, the stone floor shifting into an intricate pattern of burning embers, a ring of fire appearing around her like a cage. For a moment, Isabella hesitated. The fire, she had always feared it, the uncontrollable nature of the flame. But this was her trial. The child inside her, its power, was the flame, and she would either learn to command it or it would consume her, just as the guardians had warned. The fire around her swirled and crackled, as if it were alive, the flames dancing higher, brighter, hotter. She could feel the heat licking at her skin, the fire's pulse in tune with her own. It was overwhelming, almost suffocating in its intensity. Her heart pounded in her chest as she took a step forward, the heat stinging her skin. You must control it, the guardian's voice echoed through the chamber. Let it not be a force that burns you, but one that you shape, that you command. Isabella closed her eyes, trying to center herself in the midst of the chaos, the flames licking the air around her. Control, she thought. I must control it. She reached deep within herself, focusing on the child within her, the connection she felt. The fire wasn't just outside her, it was inside her, a part of her. It had always been there, from the moment she had first felt its pull. The fire was life. The fire was creation. And it was destruction. She opened her eyes, lifting her hands slowly, her fingers trembling with the power surging through her. The flames twisted and writhed, growing higher, more intense. She could feel the heat of them deep inside, but she didn't flinch. She wouldn't. She had learned from the first trial, the earth had answered her, and now the fire would too. Her hands raised higher, and with a deep breath, she called on the fire, commanding it. Slowly at first, the flames responded, curving inward, shifting around her like living creatures. She could feel the heat intensifying, but instead of fighting it, she welcomed it. She became one with the fire. She wasn't its victim. She was its master. The flames began to curl into a spiraling vortex above her, contained by the sheer force of her will. She could feel the power surging through her, through every fiber of her being. The child within her stirred again, as if answering the call. But as the fire swirled higher, so did the pressure. She felt the flames pushing against her, testing her resolve. They were fierce, untamed, wanting to burn, to break free of her control. Focus, she told herself. Focus. This is my fire. I control it. It does not control me. Her hands trembled as she concentrated harder, feeling the flame's power course through her, through the world. She could feel the heat of it, feel the burn, but it no longer terrified her. She was the fire. She understood it. She knew its rhythm, its pulse, its need for life and destruction. It was part of the balance. She raised her arms fully, the fire swirling around her in a circle, the heat becoming almost unbearable. But the flames, once chaotic and wild, began to slow, to settle. The air shifted, and the fire began to bend to her will, responding with precision. The trial had begun to end. The fire began to settle around her like a living cloak. She had done it. Isabella lowered her hands, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling with the effort. The flames around her dimmed, their heat retreating, leaving only the faintest glow. Zane, who had remained silent during the trial, stepped forward. His eyes were wide, his expression one of awe. Izzy, that was incredible. Isabella felt her legs weaken beneath her, and she swayed slightly, but Zane was there, steadying her. She smiled at him, though the exhaustion weighed heavily on her. I couldn't have done it without you. The guardians were silent for a long moment, their eyes flickering with something akin to approval. Finally, the golden-eyed guardian spoke. You have passed the trial of fire, Isabella. You have shown that you can command the flame, not let it consume you. Isabella stood tall, though she was drained, her energy spent from the force of the trial. She had done it. She had controlled the fire. But the guardian's next words sent a chill down her spine. There is one final trial left, the guardian intoned, its voice heavy with meaning. The trial of water. It will test your ability to flow with the forces around you. If you fail, the power you have unlocked will be lost forever. Isabella's heart raced again. The trial of water. What would it demand from her? What would she have to face to pass it? The woman's voice echoed in her mind. Only when you learn to control all the elements, Isabella, will you be able to unlock the full potential of the child and restore the balance. The water will be the final test. I'm ready, Isabella said, her voice hoarse but determined. The room shifted again. The temperature dropped suddenly, and a low sound like the rush of water began to fill the chamber. Isabella took a deep breath, bracing herself for what was to come. The trials had only just begun, but she could feel the presence of the water, the final element that would challenge her. The child stirred within her again, a silent reminder of what was at stake. And so, with her resolve steeled, she stepped forward once again, ready to face the trial of water. Chapter 35, The Trial of Water. The temperature in the room dropped sharply as the air around Isabella thickened with an almost tangible humidity. A faint, rhythmic sound echoed in the distance. A deep, flowing current that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the unmistakable sound of water, its presence growing stronger by the second. Zane, standing just a few paces behind her, seemed to sense the change. His posture tensed, but his expression remained calm. Water, he murmured, as if trying to prepare himself for the challenge ahead. Isabella didn't answer him right away. Instead, she closed her eyes, trying to center herself. The trial of earth had tested her strength and connection to the ground beneath her. The trial of fire had pushed her to understand the delicate balance between creation and destruction, but now, water. The element of life, of flow, of change. It was the one element that had always eluded her control, always been unpredictable. How could she tame something as fluid as water? But she had to try. She had no choice. The air around her was alive with the sound of rushing water, and when she opened her eyes, she saw it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the stones beneath her feet began to shimmer with moisture. The walls of the temple, once solid and stone, began to ripple, as if they, too, were alive. The space around them seemed to dissolve, becoming fluid and shifting. Water began to pool at her feet, rising quickly to her ankles, then to her knees. The world around her blurred as though it was being submerged. Isabella's heart pounded as the water continued to rise, swirling around her with increasing speed. It was as though the temple itself had become a vast ocean, its walls bending and shifting like the tide. She could feel the water's power, its depth, its mystery. It was alive in a way the earth and fire were not. It was change, fluidity, chaos. The water surged higher, curling around her, pulling her feet from the ground. Her first instinct was to panic, to fight it, but she quickly squashed it down. Don't fight it, she thought. It's not about control. It's about understanding. She had to become one with the water, just as she had done with the earth and fire. This wasn't a battle to be won with strength, it was a trial of patience, of letting go, of surrendering to the flow. The water rose higher, the pressure increasing as it pushed against her body, as if trying to force her under. Isabella stood tall, her breathing slow and steady. She reached out with her mind, feeling the water's pull, its constant motion. She focused on the rhythm of the currents, the way it flowed and shifted, the way it never stayed the same for long. For a brief moment, Isabella imagined herself as the water, fluid, flexible, unyielding in its movement. She wasn't trying to force the water into submission. She was simply learning to move with it. Her eyes closed, and she felt it, felt the change. The water stopped pulling her. Instead, it swirled around her, lifting her gently, wrapping her in a cool embrace. It was no longer an enemy, no longer a force she had to fight. It was part of her. It flowed around her, through her, as if it recognized her. She focused deeper, letting her mind follow the flow of the water. She felt the pulse of the world within it, the rain that fed the streams, the rivers that carved the land, the oceans that shaped the world's surface. The water wasn't just an element to be controlled. It was a part of the balance. It was life. Her hands rose slowly, and the water around her began to respond. It twisted in slow spirals, moving in a dance of its own, but under her control. She could feel it moving with her, no longer chaotic, but steady, like the tide returning to its source. She was part of it. The child inside her stirred again, the power inside both of them coming together. She wasn't just commanding it. She was becoming it. The water began to rise higher, its rhythm growing faster, more intense, as if testing her. It pulled at her again, but this time she did not resist. She let the water sweep around her, through her. She flowed with it, moving with its currents, becoming one with its force. And then, as suddenly as it had risen, the water began to fall back. The pressure eased, and the waves settled. The water that had once been a powerful, raging force now rested at her feet, calm and still. She had done it. The air in the chamber seemed to settle around her, the water receding as the temple's walls returned to their solid stone form. Isabella's chest rose and fell with the effort, but there was a quiet triumph in her heart. She had passed the trial of water. She had learned to flow with it, not against it. Zane stepped forward cautiously, his eyes filled with admiration. "Izzy, that was incredible. You did it." Isabella's breath was shaky, but a smile pulled at her lips. "I had to. I couldn't fight it. I had to understand it." The guardian, who had remained silent throughout the trial, stepped forward now, its glowing eyes fixed on Isabella with a mixture of respect and something deeper. Something ancient. "You have passed the trial of water, Isabella," it said, its voice resonating in the very air around them. "You have shown that you can not only control the elements but also understand them. You have become one with the forces that govern this world." Isabella nodded, the weight of her journey pressing on her, but there was a sense of peace within her now. She had faced the trials, each one pushing her to grow, to understand, to embrace her power and the child within her. But there was still one last trial left, the trial that would decide the balance once and for all. The guardian's voice grew solemn. "There is one final trial, Isabella. The trial of the soul." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. The trial of the soul. What could that possibly mean? "The trial of the soul will test everything you are," the guardian continued. "It will test your heart, your mind, and your spirit. You will have to face your deepest fears, confront the darkness within yourself, and decide once and for all who you truly are." Isabella felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Her deepest fears? What could the trial of the soul possibly be? She had already faced so much, what more could she endure? "You are not alone," Zane said, his voice steady and unwavering. "Whatever this last trial is, I'll be right here with you." Isabella turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and uncertainty. The trials had brought her closer to understanding her power, to understanding the child. But now, the final test would force her to confront the truth about herself, and the child's future. The guardian's eyes gleamed with a quiet, knowing sadness. "The trial begins now. Step forward, Isabella. It is time to face the soul." Isabella's breath hitched, but she knew what she had to do. She had come this far, and she would face whatever came next, no matter the cost. With a deep, steadying breath, she took a step forward, ready to face the final trial. Chapter 36, The Trial of the Soul. The air in the chamber grew heavy as Isabella took a step forward. Her heart hammered in her chest, a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty pulsing through her. The trial of the soul, what could it possibly mean? She had faced the earth, the fire, and the water, each one testing her control and understanding of the elements, but now, the trial would test something deeper. It would test her very essence. As she moved further into the center of the chamber, the stone walls around her seemed to shift and pulse with an energy of their own. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping dramatically, but it wasn't just the chill of the room. It was the coldness of something unseen, something ancient. The ground beneath her feet felt unstable, as if the very earth itself was waiting for her to fall. Zane stepped forward, his hand reaching out to her instinctively. "Izzy, whatever this trial is, we face it together." Isabella smiled at him, a brief flicker of warmth in the coldness of the chamber. "Thank you, Zane. But this is something I have to do alone." He hesitated, clearly reluctant to let her face whatever was coming without him by her side, but he nodded slowly. "I'll be right here, watching over you." With a final glance at him, Isabella turned back to the center of the room, where the stone altar now seemed to rise from the floor. The runes on the walls glowed faintly, and the chamber seemed to hum with an ancient energy. She stepped closer, and as her foot touched the stone, a wave of energy rushed over her, pulling her into the depths of the trial. The air shimmered, and the world around her seemed to dissolve, as though she was being transported to a different place entirely. The stone walls faded away, replaced by a dense, mist-filled forest. The trees towered overhead, their gnarled branches twisting and reaching toward the sky. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of foreboding, as if the forest itself was alive, watching her. Isabella's breath caught in her throat as she realized where she was. The place seemed so familiar, yet entirely foreign. It was a dark version of the forest she had passed through when she first began this journey. But here, everything felt different, distorted, twisted. She walked deeper into the forest, the mist swirling around her feet, her senses heightened. The weight of the trial began to settle on her. The trial of the soul wasn't just about controlling the elements, it was about confronting her deepest fears, her inner darkness. She had come so far, but was she truly ready for what was to come? Would she face the child's power or her own hidden weaknesses? Suddenly, the mist parted, and she found herself standing in front of a familiar scene. A small clearing in the forest, bathed in a pale, sickly light. The trees around her seemed to have decayed, their trunks twisted and blackened, the leaves brittle and withered. In the center of the clearing stood a figure, dark and shadowy, draped in tattered robes. The figure's face was obscured by a deep hood, but she could feel its presence, cold, malevolent. A presence that pulled at her soul. The figure spoke, its voice hollow and devoid of warmth. "Isabella, so this is where you've come. To face the darkness within yourself." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. The voice, it sounded familiar, but distant. No. It couldn't be. She stepped forward, trying to steady her breath. "Who are you?" The figure raised its head, and the shadows seemed to shift, revealing its face. It was a face she recognized all too well, her own. But this version of herself was twisted, broken, filled with anger and regret. Her eyes burned with hatred and sorrow, the reflection of everything Isabella feared within her. "You know who I am," the dark figure said, its voice filled with bitterness. "I am everything you hide from. The darkness in your heart. The fear you refuse to acknowledge. The part of you that doubts. You've spent your entire life running from me, but here I am. Here I always will be." Isabella's breath caught in her throat. She had never been afraid of her reflection before. She had never feared herself. But now, standing before this twisted version of herself, the doubt crept in. The fear that had been gnawing at her, buried deep inside, began to rise to the surface. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You're not me. You're not real." The shadowy version of herself smiled, a cruel, mocking grin. "You've spent your life pushing away the parts of you that make you weak. But you're lying to yourself. You are weak. You're afraid of failing. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of the child inside you. Afraid of the power you wield." Isabella stepped back, her heart racing as the figure took a step closer. "I'm not afraid," she said, but her voice wavered. "I've faced everything that's come my way. I'm not afraid of you." The shadow's grin widened, its voice rising, taunting. "You've already failed, Isabella. You think you can protect the child? You think you can control it? You're just as scared as everyone else. You're scared of becoming what you fear. Scared of becoming me." The words hit her like a physical blow, the weight of them sinking deep into her soul. The fear she had buried for so long, fear of failure, fear of losing control, fear of the darkness inside her, it all rushed to the surface, overwhelming her. The darkness inside her was not just an external force. It was her own fears, her own weaknesses, her own doubts. The shadow lunged at her, a wave of cold darkness crashing over her. Isabella's breath quickened as the pressure of it pushed down on her. She could feel the darkness trying to consume her, pulling at her mind, twisting her thoughts. But then, she remembered. She wasn't alone. She had Zane. She had the child. She had made a choice, and it wasn't just to fight for herself. It was to fight for the world, to fight for what was right, even in the face of her deepest fears. "No," she whispered, her voice growing stronger. "You don't control me. You don't define me." The darkness screamed, but Isabella stood her ground. She wasn't just facing the fear anymore. She was embracing it. She understood now that the darkness was not something to fight, it was something she had to acknowledge and move past. It was a part of her, but it didn't have to control her. With a sudden burst of strength, she reached deep inside herself, connecting with the child, the power, the elements. The darkness faltered, retreating in the face of her resolve. "You don't control me," Isabella said again, this time louder, stronger, more confident. "I control my fate." And with that declaration, the darkness shattered. The twisted figure crumbled into nothingness, fading into the mist as the forest around her slowly began to shift, the trees returning to life. The clearing was no longer filled with decay. The light, once sickly and pale, became warm, golden. Isabella stood in the center of the restored forest, her chest heaving as the final trial came to an end. The weight of everything, the fear, the darkness, the doubt, had been lifted. She had faced herself and won. The mist around her cleared, and she was back in the temple, standing in the same chamber she had entered only moments ago. The guardians were silent, watching her closely. "You have passed the trial of the soul," the golden-eyed guardian said, its voice filled with something akin to respect. "You have faced the darkness within yourself and emerged stronger for it. You are truly the guardian of balance, Isabella. The child's fate is now in your hands." Isabella took a deep breath, feeling the full weight of the trials lifting from her shoulders. She had faced her fears, controlled the elements, and confronted the darkness within her. The child's power was hers to protect, and she now knew what she had to do. She wasn't just a mother. She was the guardian of the balance. And she would protect it, no matter the cost. Chapter 37, The Final Choice. The air in the temple felt heavier now, charged with the energy of everything that had just transpired. The guardians stood in silence, their ethereal forms watching Isabella closely, as if waiting for something. Isabella felt the weight of their gaze, but she didn't falter. She had passed the trials. She had proven her strength, her resolve, her ability to protect the child. But there was something else in the air now. A sense of finality. The trials had led her here, to this moment. And the child within her, the force that had drawn the old ones, the force that had caused this whole journey, was waiting for its fate to be decided. The golden-eyed guardian spoke again, its voice filled with a quiet reverence. "You have passed the trials, Isabella. You have shown that you are worthy of the power you wield, that you are the guardian of balance. But now comes the final choice." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. The final choice? The child inside you, the guardian continued, is not just a force of destruction or creation. It is the balance itself. And it is up to you to decide how it will shape the world. Will you protect it, allow it to grow, and guide it toward the restoration of balance? Or will you allow the old ones to claim it, bending it to their will, and reshaping the world in their image? Isabella's chest tightened as the weight of those words settled into her bones. This wasn't just about stopping the old ones. It wasn't just about saving her child. It was about deciding the future of the world, the future of the balance. She could feel the child stirring inside her, its energy pulsing, waiting for her decision. She thought of the old ones, their cold eyes, their hunger for control. She thought of everything they had done to try and break her, to take the child and use its power for their own gain. They had seen the child as a tool, a weapon to reshape the world as they saw fit. But she wasn't just a vessel. She wasn't just a tool. She was its guardian. And she would not let it be used to destroy the world. She couldn't. But the guardian's words still echoed in her mind. Will you protect it? Or will you allow the old ones to claim it? There was no easy answer. The balance was fragile. She had seen how easily the world could tip into chaos. She had felt the weight of the power within her, the child's power. It was both a gift and a burden. She could protect it, but could she ensure that it would be used to restore the balance, to bring peace to a fractured world? The child had the potential to either create or destroy. And she had the power to shape its destiny. Zane stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with quiet urgency. Izzy, whatever you decide, I'm with you. We've fought for this. For your child. For the future. You're not alone in this. Isabella turned to him, her heart swelling at the sound of his voice. He had been with her every step of the way, through the trials, through the battles. He had stood by her, fought with her, and now, as the weight of her choice settled upon her, she knew that no matter what, she wasn't alone. But the decision still loomed in front of her. She could protect the child. But could she control its power, its potential? And if she let it grow unchecked, what would happen? The power inside her was immense. The old ones had seen that. They had wanted to control it. Could she protect the child's purity, its true purpose, while ensuring it didn't fall into the same darkness they sought to impose? Isabella turned back to the guardians, her voice steady. How can I be sure? How do I know that I'm making the right choice? The golden-eyed guardian stepped forward, its gaze solemn. No choice is without consequence. The child is both light and dark. Creation and destruction. It will either restore balance, or shatter it. The decision is yours, and yours alone. Isabella's mind raced as she stared at the guardian. The weight of the world seemed to press down on her. She had already chosen to protect the child, to fight for its future. But now, this choice was about something greater than herself. It was about the future of everything, the world, the balance, life itself. She placed a hand on her abdomen, feeling the stirrings of the child inside her. She had carried this power for so long. She had felt the fire, the earth, the water, the elements that shaped her. But the child was something more. Something different. It wasn't just part of her. It was the future. And she would protect it. She would protect them, the child and the world, no matter the cost. I choose, Isabella said, her voice stronger now, the decision settling in her bones. I choose to protect the child. I will guide it, help it find its own path, and together, we will restore the balance. The guardians stood silent for a moment, their eyes gleaming with approval. Finally, the golden-eyed guardian nodded. You have made the right choice, it said, its voice filled with a mixture of respect and something deeper, something ancient. The child will be a force for restoration, not destruction. But it is up to you to guide it. The path ahead will not be easy, but you are ready. You have proven yourself worthy. Isabella felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was tempered with the knowledge that the journey was far from over. The old ones would not give up easily. They would come again, stronger and more determined. But now, she had the strength to face them. She had the power of the elements, the child's potential, and the unwavering support of Zane. Together, they would fight for the future. Together, they would face whatever came next. Zane stepped forward, his hand finding hers once again, steady and strong. We've got this, Izzy. Whatever happens, we face it together. You're not alone in this. Isabella smiled, her heart filled with quiet confidence. Together. And with that, she and Zane left the temple, the child's power within her, knowing that the journey was far from over. The final battle was yet to come. But this time, she was ready. They were ready. The world's balance depended on it. Chapter 38, The Return of the Old Ones. The path out of the temple was a quiet one, as the weight of their decision settled into Isabella's bones. Each step felt both like a victory and a prelude to something greater, a promise that the journey was far from over. The air around them seemed to hum with power, as if the very earth, the elements themselves, had witnessed their decision and were aligning in preparation for the battle to come. Zane walked beside her, his presence a steadying force that made the uncertainty feel a little less overwhelming. He had always been there, from the moment they first met, and now, more than ever, she could feel the strength of their bond. No matter what the old ones would throw at them, she knew they would face it together. As they descended the mountain, the landscape around them seemed to shift, the rocky cliffs and towering trees giving way to more open ground. The distant horizon stretched before them, bathed in the first light of dawn. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, Isabella felt a quiet peace settle over her. The child within her, their child, had a purpose. And she was ready to fulfill it. The silence between them was comfortable, but the weight of their decision hung in the air like an unspoken promise. The world was on the edge of something they couldn't yet fully see, but they both felt it. The old ones would return. It wasn't a question of if, but when. And when they did, Isabella would be ready. She would protect her child. She would protect the balance. Suddenly, Zane's hand brushed against hers, breaking her thoughts. She looked up to see his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and admiration. "You're quiet," he said, his voice low but steady. "Are you okay?" Isabella smiled at him, the warmth in her heart swelling despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead. "I'm okay," she said softly, her voice filled with quiet certainty. "I've made my choice. I've chosen to protect the child. To guide it. And now, it's time to face what comes next." Zane nodded, his grip tightening around her hand, his eyes filled with unspoken promise. "You're not alone in this. We've come this far together, and we'll go the rest of the way, side by side." Isabella's heart swelled at his words. There was so much uncertainty ahead, but as long as she had Zane by her side, she knew she could face anything. Together, they were strong enough. But as they continued their journey down the mountain, a sudden shift in the air made Isabella stop in her tracks. The wind picked up, and with it, the unmistakable sense of something approaching. The child inside her stirred, as if sensing the same thing. It was more than a feeling, it was an undeniable presence, dark and familiar. Zane's expression darkened. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice tense. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. She could feel it now too. The air was thick with an unnatural energy, a coldness that seemed to pulse through the ground beneath her feet. She closed her eyes, trying to focus, trying to tap into the elements around her. And that's when she felt it, them. The old ones. They were near. And they were closing in fast. A sound like thunder rolled in the distance, and Isabella's breath caught. It wasn't the storm that had passed before, but something darker, more sinister. The sky above darkened, clouds swirling like a vortex, and the wind began to howl with a deafening intensity. The ground beneath them shook as if responding to the ancient, malevolent power rising once again. "They're coming," Isabella said, her voice tight with fear but laced with determination. Zane stepped in front of her instinctively, his sword drawn, his muscles tense. "We're ready. We've faced them once. We'll do it again." But Isabella knew. She knew the battle wasn't the same. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for the balance itself. And the old ones wouldn't be the only ones they had to contend with. From the swirling storm above, dark shapes began to materialize, figures cloaked in shadow, their eyes glowing with that same malevolent, all-consuming hunger. The old ones had returned, their forms more powerful, more relentless than before. The ground cracked open, and from the chasm, more figures emerged. These ones even darker, their forms flickering like ghosts, an unnatural cold emanating from their very beings. They were the ones who had been sent to stop Isabella, to take the child and break the balance. They were the leaders of the old ones, the ones with power beyond comprehension. One of them, a towering figure cloaked in robes that seemed to shimmer with an ethereal blackness, stepped forward. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its voice was like the roar of the earth cracking. You think you can stand against us, Isabella? You have chosen a path that will lead to your destruction. Isabella's heart pounded in her chest. The old ones had seen the child as a weapon, but they had underestimated her. They had underestimated the bond she shared with the child. She was no longer just a vessel for its power. She was its guardian. She was the protector of balance. And she would not let them take that from her. The air around her hummed with the power of the elements, the wind swirling, the fire crackling in the distance. The earth beneath her feet trembled, as though waiting for her command. I've made my choice, Isabella said, her voice steady, unwavering. And I will not let you take my child. I will not let you destroy the world. The figure laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the darkened sky. You cannot stop what is destined, little one. The child's power belongs to us. And when we have it, the balance will be ours to control. You will bow before us. Zane's voice was fierce. We won't let you. We'll fight to the end. Isabella stepped forward, feeling the energy of the earth, the wind, the fire, and the water all come alive within her. The child within her stirred, its power reaching out to her. She could feel its pulse, its connection to the world, an unshakable bond that neither the old ones nor anyone else could sever. With a deep breath, Isabella raised her hands, the elements responding to her command. The earth rumbled beneath her, the wind howled, the flames rose high into the sky, and the water surged with a force that could drown the world. I am the guardian of the balance, she said, her voice a declaration of power and defiance. And you will not take what is mine. The ground beneath the old ones cracked open, the elements swirling around them in a vortex of raw, untamed energy. The battle had begun, and this time, it would not end until the child's future, the world's future, was secured. Chapter 39, The Battle for the Balance. The air was thick with tension as the dark figures of the old ones loomed closer, their forms flickering in the swirling storm of energy that Isabella had unleashed. The ground beneath her feet cracked open as if the very earth itself was responding to her defiance. The power of the elements surged around her, the wind howling, the earth trembling, the fire blazing, and the water swirling with a fury that seemed to rival the storm above. Zane stood beside her, his sword gleaming in the dim light, his body tense and ready for the fight that was about to unfold. He had always been her protector, but now, Isabella could feel the weight of the battle shifting. This wasn't just about survival, it was about securing the future, for her child and for the world itself. The towering figure of the old one in front of her stepped forward, its glowing amber eyes locked onto Isabella with an unsettling intensity. You are outmatched, little wolf, the old one hissed, its voice a deep, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the ground. The child will belong to us, and when it does, the world will be reshaped in our image. Isabella's heart raced as the darkness in front of her seemed to press in, but she refused to flinch. She could feel the child inside her, its energy a steady pulse, strong and unwavering. It was a force, both a blessing and a burden, and she would protect it, no matter the cost. You will never control it, Isabella said, her voice steady, but filled with fierce conviction. The child is not a tool for your twisted desires. It is a force of nature, and it will never bow to your will. The old one laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed around them. You still don't understand, do you? You are nothing but a puppet, playing at powers far beyond your control. You cannot stop what is inevitable. The child will be ours, and the balance will be ours to break. Isabella felt the power inside her rise, responding to the challenge. The elements around her, earth, fire, wind, water, twisted and held, their energy feeding into her. She could feel the raw, untamed force of nature inside her, her connection to the world's balance stronger than ever before. The child inside her stirred, and she knew that the time had come to make her stand. With a fierce cry, Isabella raised her hands high, the elements responding to her command. The earth beneath her feet trembled violently as the ground cracked open, and the wind whipped around her like a furious gale. Flames leapt high into the sky, their heat scorching the air, and the water surged around her, twisting and rising like a tidal wave. The old ones recoiled, momentarily caught off guard by the sheer force of Isabella's power. She had become one with the elements, earth, fire, water, and wind, all at her command. She wasn't just a vessel anymore. She was their equal, their adversary. And she would not back down. The golden-eyed leader of the old ones, still glaring at Isabella, let out a growl of frustration. You think you can stand against us? We are the ones who have shaped this world. We are the ones who control the balance. You are nothing compared to us. Isabella's eyes narrowed as she locked gazes with the leader. I may not have the centuries of power you possess, but I have something you don't. I have the child. And I will protect it. With a surge of will, Isabella thrust her arms forward, and the elements responded. The earth cracked wide, sending jagged rocks and boulders flying toward the old ones, while the wind howled in a deafening roar, pushing back against their dark energy. The fire blazed, engulfing the old ones in a circle of flame, and the water rose to meet them, swirling with immense force, creating a barrier between them and the temple. The old ones screamed, their forms flickering as they struggled to maintain their footing. But Isabella's power was overwhelming, the elements' fury pushing them back, forcing them to retreat for the moment. The earth, fire, wind, and water had become her allies, and together, they were an unstoppable force. But the golden-eyed leader was not done. With a roar, it raised its hand, and the air around them shifted, becoming thick with an oppressive energy. The ground shook as cracks formed beneath their feet, and the sky darkened, swirling with dark clouds. The old ones were calling upon their own dark powers, summoning the very essence of destruction to fight back. Isabella felt the pressure building, the world around her bending beneath the weight of their power. The child inside her stirred again, its energy growing, responding to the call of the old ones. She could feel its presence, its strength, but it was raw and untamed. She had to control it. She had to guide it. Zane! Isabella cried, her voice strained with the effort. I need you. Zane, who had been holding his ground beside her, his sword raised, turned toward her with fierce determination. What do you need me to do? I need you to hold them off. Isabella shouted. I can't do this alone. The child's power, it's too much. But I can't let them take it. We have to stop them, together. Zane nodded without hesitation, his eyes locked onto the approaching old ones. I'll keep them back. You focus on the child. Isabella closed her eyes, feeling the connection between herself and the child deepen. She could feel its power, raw, untapped, but full of potential. It wasn't just a weapon. It was life. It was balance. And she had to guide it, help it find its place in the world. She reached deep within herself, pulling on every ounce of energy she had. The elements surged around her, and the ground beneath her feet cracked again, but this time, she held it steady. She controlled it. The earth, fire, water, and wind, they were not just forces of nature. They were parts of her. She was the balance. And the child, her child, was the key to it all. With a final surge of power, Isabella released the energy, sending a pulse through the air, the earth, and the sky. The storm above them swirled as the elements responded to her, the wind howling, the earth trembling, the fire burning with new intensity, and the water rising higher than before. But this time, it wasn't chaos. It was control. The balance was restored. The old ones screamed as the elements overwhelmed them, their dark energy faltering in the face of Isabella's strength. They were no longer the ones in control. She was. The child's power was no longer something they could corrupt. It was her power to command. With one final push, the old ones were cast back, their forms flickering and dissipating into the dark storm that raged above them. The elements fell silent, their fury dying down as the world around them settled. The storm that had once raged so fiercely was gone, and in its place, there was peace. Isabella stood, panting, her body trembling from the effort. The ground beneath her was cracked, scorched, but the air was still. The old ones were gone, for now. Zane was by her side in an instant, his hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "You did it," he said softly, awe in his voice. "You really did it." Isabella nodded, though her body was still shaken from the battle. "We did it," she whispered. "Together." The child inside her stirred again, its presence strong and steady. She felt the connection between them, a bond that had only deepened through the trials and the battle. The child was no longer just a force to be controlled. It was a part of her, and she would protect it with everything she had. But the fight wasn't over. The old ones would return. And when they did, Isabella would be ready. The balance had been restored, for now. And together with Zane, they would face whatever came next. Because this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future. Chapter 40, The Winds of Change. The air was still, but beneath the surface of the quiet, there was an undeniable tension, a sense of something that hadn't yet fully passed. The old ones had been defeated, for now, but the battle had been too close, too dangerous. Isabella could feel the weight of that truth deep in her chest, an unspoken promise that their victory wasn't permanent. The world was still fragile, teetering on the edge of something far greater than she had yet come to understand. She turned to look at Zane, his expression filled with a quiet determination that matched her own. He had fought beside her, had stood by her side through the chaos of the trials, through the surge of elemental power that had come with the child's awakening. And now, as the calm settled around them, she could sense the unspoken bond between them, a bond that had only grown stronger. "We've won," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the victory, but also the shadow of something still lingering. "But the old ones will return. We both know that." Zane's gaze met hers, and he nodded, the determination in his eyes unwavering. "We can't rest on this victory. We've shown them we won't back down, but that doesn't mean they won't keep trying." Isabella felt the familiar pulse of the child inside her, stronger now, its energy almost alive, as if it too sensed the unrest in the air. She pressed a hand to her stomach, her thoughts swirling. She wasn't just carrying the child anymore. She was becoming a force that could change the world. She had already tapped into so much power. Earth, fire, water, and wind, but now there was something else. Something greater. The child was the balance. It was creation, destruction, life, and death. And Isabella had to learn how to guide it. "We need to move," Zane continued, breaking her thoughts. "The old ones won't give up easily. And if they're planning something, we need to be ready." Isabella nodded, though the weight of the responsibility pressed heavily on her. "We can't stay here." "But where do we go?" "The world has changed, and I can't help but feel like there's something more we need to do. Something the temple didn't tell us." Zane studied her for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "There's more to this than just fighting them. You are the balance, Izzy. But you also have the power to reshape it. The child inside you, it's not just part of you. It's part of everything, the elements, the earth, the air, the life force that runs through all of us. The old ones wanted to control it, but you can choose what happens next." Isabella closed her eyes, the gravity of his words settling deep inside her. He was right. She had the power to change everything, but she wasn't sure how to wield it. The child's power was connected to the very forces that governed life itself. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about choosing. She had already made the choice to protect the child, but could she really shape its future? Could she guide it to restore balance, or would she lose herself to the very power she sought to control? The wind around them began to stir, a whisper of energy that seemed to beckon her forward. She could feel the elements responding to her, the earth rumbling beneath her feet, the air alive with potential. She wasn't sure where to go next, but the world felt like it was waiting for her to decide. "We need to find the place where the child's power can be fully realized," Isabella said, her voice steady, but her heart filled with uncertainty. "We need to understand what the child is, what it can do. And we need to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Zane nodded, his hand tightening around hers. "Then we'll find it together. We'll figure it out." Whatever comes next, we face it together. Isabella felt the warmth of his words, but the weight of the child's power was still pressing on her. It was both a blessing and a curse, a force too great for anyone to truly control, yet one that needed guidance. The old ones had tried to claim it, but they had underestimated her. They had underestimated the bond she shared with the child. But what if she couldn't control it? What if, in the end, she was too weak to guide it? What if the balance was beyond her reach? The wind around them began to pick up, the sky darkening slightly as a new presence filled the air. It was subtle at first, like a whisper at the edge of her consciousness, but then it grew, stronger, more insistent. "Do you feel that?" Zane asked, his voice sharp with awareness. Isabella turned to face him, her eyes narrowing as the energy in the air seemed to pulse, a ripple of dark power that ran through the very fabric of the world. "Something's coming." Before they could react, the world seemed to shift again. The ground beneath them trembled, and the very sky above cracked open with a sound like thunder. Isabella's breath hitched as she looked up, her heart racing. There, on the horizon, a dark shape loomed, one that had been absent for too long. The old ones. Their shadows stretched across the sky, their presence overwhelming, like a dark cloud consuming everything in its path. Zane's hand gripped hers tightly. "They're here." Isabella could feel it now, the darkness that had once been pushed back, now returning with an even greater force. The old ones had been waiting, gathering their strength, biding their time. And now, they had come for what was theirs, or at least, what they believed was theirs. But Isabella wasn't the same person she had been when they first met. She wasn't just a girl running from her destiny anymore. She was the guardian of the balance. And she would stand her ground, no matter what. "They won't take it from me," Isabella said, her voice filled with quiet defiance. "They won't take my child." Zane's gaze locked onto hers, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to pause. There was no doubt in his eyes. He knew what she had to do. He knew that the fight ahead would be unlike anything they had ever faced before. "We won't let them," Zane said, his voice a vow, unwavering and true. The wind howled as the old ones began to descend, their figures looming over the earth. The world seemed to tremble in anticipation, as if waiting for the clash between light and darkness to unfold. Isabella closed her eyes, reaching deep within herself. The power of the child pulsed, stronger than ever before. She could feel the elements around her, the earth beneath her feet, the fire in the distance, the wind swirling, the water crashing like a storm. All of it was within her, waiting to be unleashed. And she was ready. As the first of the old ones stepped forward, its amber eyes glowing like embers, Isabella raised her hands high, her voice rising in a defiant cry that echoed across the battlefield. "This world belongs to us," she declared, the power in her voice resonating with the earth, the wind, the fire, and the water. "And we will not let you take it." The battle for the balance was about to begin. Chapter 41, The Gathering Storm. The wind howled through the cracks in the earth, whipping at their clothes, the very air thick with energy. The old ones were upon them, their forms towering and dark, their presence suffocating. They loomed over Isabella and Zane like shadows, their eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger, ready to take what they believed was rightfully theirs. Isabella stood firm, her heart racing but her resolve unwavering. The child inside her pulsed with a power that seemed to vibrate the very air around them. The elements around her, the earth, the fire, the wind, the water, were all alive, responding to her call. She had already faced the trials, the darkness within her, and the forces that tried to consume her. She had chosen to protect the balance, and now it was time to make that choice known. Zane stepped closer to her, his sword drawn, his eyes locked onto the advancing figures. "We've come this far," he said, his voice steady. "We'll face this together. No matter what." Isabella nodded, feeling his presence beside her like a shield, his strength unwavering. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the world, for the child inside her, and for the balance that kept everything from unraveling. The golden-eyed leader of the old ones stepped forward, its form flickering with malevolent energy. You think you can stand against us, little girl? It hissed, its voice a low growl that echoed in the stillness. You've chosen the wrong side. The child's power is ours to control, and we will reshape this world as we see fit. Isabella clenched her fists, feeling the earth beneath her shift, the wind at her back, and the fire at her fingertips. She could feel the child's energy stirring, responding to the threat. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a battle for everything: life, balance, and the future of the world. The air around them crackled with tension as the old ones raised their hands, dark energy swirling around their fingertips, pulling at the very fabric of the world. The ground beneath their feet rumbled, and the sky above seemed to darken, clouds swirling in a violent storm that threatened to swallow everything. But Isabella didn't back down. She couldn't. The child needed her. The world needed her. With a fierce cry, she raised her hands high, calling upon the elements. The ground trembled as the earth responded, cracks forming beneath the old one's feet. The wind picked up, howling like a storm, and fire surged from the earth, rising in great torrents of flame. Water rose from the nearby stream, crashing into the air in a violent wave. The old ones recoiled, momentarily thrown off balance by the sheer force of Isabella's power. The elements had become her allies, and now, she was not just wielding them. She was them. You cannot defeat us, the golden-eyed leader shouted, its voice filled with rage as it pushed back against the waves of energy. We are the masters of this world. You are nothing but a child. But Isabella could feel the child inside her stirring, stronger than ever, its presence a steady pulse beneath her skin. She could feel the balance shifting. The child wasn't just part of her. It was a force of nature, and she would not let it fall into the hands of those who sought to destroy the balance. With a focused breath, she released the full force of the elements. The wind howled like a wild beast, the earth split open, and the fire exploded outward in a circle of flame, surrounding the old ones. The water surged, crashing against them with the force of a tidal wave. The air seemed to tremble with the power of it all. The old ones howled, their forms flickering as the elemental forces rained down on them. Their power was immense, but Isabella had something they did not: control. The balance of the world had always been fragile, but now, she held the key to its restoration. And the child, the force that tied everything together, was hers to protect. But the golden-eyed leader, though visibly shaken, refused to fall. It raised its hand, its eyes blazing with fury. You think this is over? It screeched, the dark energy surrounding it intensifying. We are beyond your control. You cannot stop us. Isabella's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of the power she was wielding nearly overwhelming. But she couldn't stop now. She couldn't let the old ones destroy everything. With a fierce cry, she extended her arms, and the elements responded. The earth beneath her cracked open further, and the fire surged higher, reaching toward the sky. The water, once chaotic, became a controlled force, crashing against the old ones with precision. The wind whipped around her, its force like a hurricane, trapping the old ones in a vortex of energy. The golden-eyed leader screamed, its form flickering as the elemental forces pressed down on it. The other old ones, too, seemed to struggle against the fury of the elements. Their dark energy was strong, but it was not enough to overpower the power of the earth, the fire, the wind, and the water, all of it united by Isabella's will. I am the guardian of the balance. Isabella shouted, her voice filled with power and defiance. And I will protect it.